Happy Tuesday. So, this week I had such a fun conversation that I really think you all will enjoy. Chef Leo Davila and I met at the San Antonio Food Festival back in the fall, and he has even helped me out on one of my cooking tip articles since then. He appeared on Food Network's Big Restaurant Bet as a contestant, so of course we had to get into the details on that. We talked about the ups and downs of his culinary career while getting into the nitty gritty of what he plans to do in the restaurant game next. So please join me in welcoming the lovely chef Leo Davila.
One, two, three, four.
So it's great to see you again as well.
Yeah, you too.
I think about the San Antonio Festival often because I ate insane food there. So it's
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of food.
a little too much. I had to recover a little bit, but I'm not complaining. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I know it's always different at the end of those, right? Like kind of when we're done or, we send a team member to go grab some food, you don't
Mhm.
realize that like you're setting up at 8 a.m. and then here it is 3 p.m. and you haven't had anything and maybe like two sips of water. And then you start to scarf at the end and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, like let me slow down. Like I'm hungry, but also I'm gonna be very sick if I keep eating at this rate. So yeah, no, I get it. A lot of food.
Totally fair. I mean, I guess you can't eat your own supply. I mean, you could, but
Yeah, it's always weird, like with chefs and cooks, like eating our food, like, we have to eat it to taste it to make sure it's right. But like kind of the joy and all that is just like letting somebody else eat it, like we'll snack on our stuff just as like in case, somebody's getting hangry. But for the most part, it's like definitely let, everyone else enjoy and just kind of see their faces.
yeah, I was just talking about that the other day. Like, I feel like the joy for me, and it sounds like for you as well, is just the reactions that you get from the food that you
Yeah.
cook. That must be like so
Yeah, I
satisfying for
know.
you because you normally are cooking for like big groups, you have a restaurant, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it is nice. I never really realized like that was like the passion of it all.
Hmm.
A lot of times like you work on something and like you conceptualize it. Like I've been working on this dish that we just put on the menu for Lunar New Year, honey
Ooh.
walnut shrimp.
Ooh.
And that dish was actually my great aunt owned 4 or 5 American style Chinese restaurants in San Antonio.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'd never had that dish before, and it was my culinary school graduation. Graduating from culinary school, we had my party there, and of course, it was kind of twofold. At that party, she announces, "Hey, by the way, your party is our last dinner service. We sold the business." And I was
What?
like, "What?" And they brought out this platter, and it was almost just like a celebration and a feast. And I was like, "What's this?" And they're like, "The honey walnut shrimp." And I had it, and I was like, "Oh wow! Like why have I never eaten
Hmm.
this like in all my life?"
Yeah.
And then literally from when I graduated in 2016 from culinary school, I've been working on it. Finally was able to talk to my cousins, and it's been 3, 4 months in the making to kind of put my own spin on it, put my own variation on it, and finally it hit the menu. And it's just great kind of walking through the restaurant or going to grab something and people are like, "Hey chef, that dish is amazing," or just a response online to it. So yeah, I mean it is very much just a satisfying thing to see something that we've worked so hard on hit the menu and then people just receive it very, very well.
Did your aunt taste test it? Did you have her taste it before you
She has not yet.
went?
That's always like the scary part.
Mhm.
She came into the restaurant a couple years ago for the first time, and everybody was kind of on pins and needles. And I was like, "Let me cook the food. I trust y'all, but let me cook the food. Let me do this." And just like in any true fashion, I mean, she loved it. And then at the end, she sat me down and gave me some parting words of wisdom on what to correct. She came in 6 to 8 months ago again, tried some of the dishes, and was like, "You took my notes," and that was it. So that was kind of like the seal of approval. Like, okay, good, like good, like, and that was it. And that's all I needed. That's all I was looking for. So yeah, so she definitely has been a big inspiration on just like that you can do it. She did it for 20, 25 years in the city and did it at a high level. And my uncle John was their cook, was their chef. My cousins, Victor, Harvey, and Elaine worked in the restaurants and did their thing. So it's just cool to kind of for them to come and support me on this, and they're just like, "Hey, we understand, we get it, just keep pushing, you're doing great things." So it's always good to have that. I mean, and I have an amazing family, an amazing support system. So I mean, I'm blessed in that regard.
Yeah, that's interesting. She sounds like the Gordon Ramsay of San Antonio.
Yeah, yeah, she's very, my aunt is, Chinese Chinese through and through, and she very much is very blunt, very matter of fact, very doesn't sugarcoat anything. The first time she came in, she talked about my rice, and she's like, "There's this saying, I don't know it in English, but there's this saying in Chinese," and basically it was like my rice is almost cooked. And it was like from then, so like every now, like it's like one of those like personal ethos and mantras. Like when I come in, we taste the rice to make sure like it has to taste, it has to smell a certain way. And luckily, my chef de cuisine, Chef Hunter, is very well like aware of that smell. Chef Kendra as well is very aware of that smell, so they understand that. And again, like we've dialed it down, so it's great.
You need people like that because people that are
Yeah,
honest, it sounds like she has a blunt delivery, but obviously like she means well in the end, and it actually
yeah.
is constructive feedback that will lead to the success of your restaurant. So you need people like that in business sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'd much rather have somebody like honestly give me feedback than to just tell me like it's good and then to walk away and be like, well, it needed this, it needed that. Because, as a cook, yeah, you hear that like the chefs are sensitive and they feel this, and it is the extent, right? Like we're putting, part of who we are out on the plate. But when I ask, certain friends and family or customers that have been loyal and we test out a dish, I'm like, no, give me your brutally honest opinion, because if you don't, we're going to sit back and be like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. We're good to go. Let's launch it. And then along the way of us launching it, we're like, we should have done this, we should have done that. Because my palate is different than my chef's palate. And that's what makes us so unique, is that we can kind of come together and say, well, I think, because now, I kind of went on this whole health thing. I had a really bad health scare in May.
Oh no.
And through that process, I've lost about 70 pounds
Oh
and
wow.
just getting back healthy, right? Just kind of taking back control of my life. And through that process, like my palate has changed to where salt and sweet are really, really like heavy on my tongue now. So I want to make sure when I taste it and I'm like, hey, this is super salty. And then, I'll have Chef Kendra, who has a very sensitive palate to salt, be like, no. Like, okay, well, then I guess now I'm the sensitive one to salt. So it's a good balance to have an amazing team around me that can just complement each other on those things.
It sounds like you have such an amazing support system, and you guys really seem like you've, at least your family too, paved kind of the path in San Antonio. Because it's interesting when you go into a creative career, sometimes it's not necessarily understood by people who aren't in one. Because being a chef is very
No, yeah,
creative, you know? So if your
for sure.
family like didn't have any of those skills or like wasn't in the business, do you think you would have been able to do this? Do you think you would have still found being a chef and a restaurant owner as your career, or maybe something else?
Yeah, my family's great, but they're also very traditional in the sense that, my mom was like, go to school, get an education, get a degree, get a great job, and kind of do that. And I was like, sure. I played sports in high school and, of course had, these NBA, NFL
Mm.
dreams, and, quickly realized, well, I'm 5'10", it probably capped out at, my dreams aren't gonna hit there from, from the athletic talent
Uh-huh.
standpoint. And, then all of a sudden just school really wasn't for me. And I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, started working big box retail, moved up rather quickly, and then was working, 80, 85 hours a week for
Wow.
Lowe's. And I was like, there has to be more to life than this. Just didn't know where I wanted to go. My dad, my parents are divorced. My dad lived in Houston at the time. Was like, hey, like, let's open up a restaurant. I said, sure, why not? We had some money, thought we had managerial expertise. So we went, hired a chef who was Brazilian, hired a front of the house lady who, was about high end wines, and we wanted to be like upscale Mexican. Now, what does that mean? I have no clue. Right. But that was our thought. Our thought was like, we're gonna be upscale Mexican in Houston. Well, again, so now me and my dad have these different opinions. His expertise was he was a manager at Taco Bell when he was 16 years
Oh,
old.
okay.
So he has that
Fair, it's valid.
background in food. Yeah, I have no background in food. We hired these two people who, again, don't really align with our vision, but we didn't understand that at the time. Sunk in a lot of money. And just after 6 to 8 months, I said, you know what? We're going nowhere fast. Pulled the plug. I said, let's really think about this. A turn of events brought me back to San Antonio. My grandpa had passed away. I was really close to my grandpa and my grandma.
I'm
My
sorry.
grandma was really sad. I just wanted to be with her. So I moved back and then was like, hey, you know what? If I want to take this serious, let me go to culinary school. And when I told people I was going to culinary school, my mom and my grandma, who are my rocks, my aces, were like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, you're going to school. So let's just, sure, why
Let's
not?
applaud it. Yeah.
Went through all of that. Yeah, yeah, like cool, cool. You're gonna go get a bachelor's degree. You're gonna go back to school finally. Awesome. So did that. Still, when I went to culinary school, the first 6 months, I was like, I don't think this is for me. Through there, I met one of my best friends now, who's my chef mentor, Chef Greg Williams, and he was like, just stick with it. Because I went to him and I said, hey, I think I'm gonna drop out. He goes, just stick with it. There's something there. You have something. Just don't leave yet. Okay. And then one day it just started to make sense. And then I was like, okay, knife skills started to come in. I practice at home all the time, cooked little dishes all the time. And then from there, and then, started working at a food manufacturer when I graduated, started working in restaurants, and I still wasn't happy. And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. My mom and my grandma were like, well, go get a job. And I'm like, I have a job, I want to be in food. And then I decided in 2018 to branch out and do my own business. So I started Catch the Wave. We were a food pop-up caterer slash farmers market vendor.
Okay.
Catch the Wave, we were going to do drinks. We were going to
I was
do
going to ask
drinks.
you about
The
that.
name,
Hmm.
yeah, the name only made sense because I woke up one day and it was like a divine intervention. I had all these friends and family like, hey, you're not happy. You need to do something, do your own thing. You're going to miss the boat. You're going to miss the wave. And I just
Oh,
woke up and said, no, I'll catch the wave.
oh.
And I was like, and the story and the name didn't make sense to food, but it made sense to me and my story. So we just went with it. And even at that, right, we opened up in December. We had an amazing December at all these farmers markets. Well, what they don't tell you is January and February, people don't have money. Like they don't have
That is
money because of
true.
Christmas. They don't have money to spend.
Especially if
So
there are
I was going to these
birthdays,
farmers
like
markets.
in December, my
Yeah.
sister's birthdays, it's Christmas,
Yeah.
it's like we're tapped out.
Yeah, my mom's birthday is
Hmm.
January 5th, so I got to make sure I save a little gift for her,
Oh,
like afterwards, so we don't all, spend all the money on the Christmas.
fair.
So I was going to farmers markets and making like $30-$40 a
Oh,
week. And
wow.
I was like, what did I do? Where am I going? And my mom and my grandma were both like, hey, like go get a job. And I was just like, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with it. And then in March of 2019, I was like, you know what? Like, we're not making it. I need to pivot and do something else. There's this big taco fest that came in San Antonio. And I said, you know what? Let's just do it. We had like $275 in our bank account. I said, let's just go all into this festival. I pivoted to a blue corn tortilla because my grandma used to make those. I said, you
Right.
know what? If I'm
Mhm.
gonna go out, I'm gonna go out on my terms. Went with the blue corn tortilla, and then we ended up winning. And then
Wow.
from there, it was like, oh, well, maybe we have something. And then 2 months later, we entered in another taco competition, and we won that one. And then
Wow.
in October, we were entered in another taco truck throwdown without a taco truck, and we won that one. So it was like,
Without a taco
okay, well, maybe there's something there.
truck.
Yeah, we were just in a tent. Everybody else was in taco
That's
trucks, and we were
funny.
just in a tent, cooking.
Uh-huh.
And then we win that, and great momentum heading in 2020. We were looking at getting a brick and mortar space, and then COVID kind of derailed
Mm.
all of that. So we took a detour, and then after COVID, when we were able to jump into a starter restaurant, I decided to switch names. Everybody always gives me some crap that I'm known for picking like difficult names, like Six in Stone. Again, doesn't really mean anything to like food per se,
Mhm.
but we did an event for the Spurs where we had to do handheld. So Chef Kendra at the time was like, hey, let's do skewers. We really like skewers. We really like handheld. So I said, okay. So Sticks, that's where the name came from. And then Stone, I love everything like ceramic, stoneware,
Okay.
clayware. So Sticks and Stone kind of made through and just kind of made sense for the journey of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So
Oh, I no, I like that it means something to
yeah,
you because honestly, like
yeah,
no one really cares much about the name. They care about the food, you know? I mean, it's the brand,
yeah,
it's the brand,
and
but
that's,
still, like it's people are going for the
yeah,
food. They're not going to not go somewhere because the name doesn't make sense, you know?
for sure. Yeah. That's what we were hoping, and it's worked out so far. So yeah.
Something I'm really learning, and I've been told a lot by like entrepreneurs, and honestly, I had a tarot card reading recently. I don't know if I believe most of it, but I some of it. She told me this. She was like, there are people who work really really hard and then they give up right at the point where their success could have turned or they just needed to wait like a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And it sounds like you kind of had that epiphany a few times being in culinary school and the pop-up taco truck. So I'm curious like what emotions you were going through at the time that made you push yourself.
Yeah, definitely. In culinary school, it was one of those where I was lost. I say that food saved me. I grew up not in gangs, drugs, violence, none of that. Like I had a very loving family. Even, I had my mom and my stepdad. My dad was in Houston doing a great, very loving parents. I got out of that, three sisters and a brother who I love dearly. They're amazing. And I was just kind of floating aimlessly. Like I was about to turn 30 and I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. All my life, I've been told, you have so much potential. You have so much this. You're going to do this. You're going to be great. And I was just sometimes sitting, staring at the wall, thinking, I don't know what that means. I don't know where I'm going. So food really did give me a purpose. The fact that I'm able to cook, create. I never valued myself or saw myself as like a creative person. Like I was never like pen and pad and doodling. I mean, my doodles are horrible. If I try to mock up like a plate up or try to draw a building, people are like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but it made sense in my
Yeah.
head, right? So I was never just like that creative type, or at least I thought, at least in that sense. And food just gave me a purpose. And I think it really just triggered once I really saw like the people's eyes light up when they ate the food, or just to see them proud of me of like creating something. They were like, oh, well, you're going for it. And that little motivation really just helped me. And I knew that there was something there. Like there's just something, I can't really explain it, but there's just some kind of just in the pit of my stomach that was just like kind of like that turning point that they told you that it was like, you're there. You can stop, or you can keep going. Like either way, something's gonna happen. You can
Right.
regret it for quitting, or you can regret it for actually going for it. So I figured, what's the worst that can happen if I just put everything into it? Then if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. At least I can sit back and say, you know what, I went all in, and it worked out or it didn't work out. There's no regret. So I mean, even right now, we're on the verge of looking for a new
Well,
space.
congratulations.
We've outgrown the space we're currently
That's
in. Yeah,
exciting.
thank you. We're 8 tables, 36 seats. We're super
Yeah.
small. We fill up really quick. And it's kind of like that love hate where our regular customers are like, I'm glad you have business, but it sucks I
Yeah.
can't get a table on a Thursday night now. And I'm like,
It's coming.
just call, make a reservation, like we got you. And so now we're looking into new space, and it's a whole nother beast. It's a whole nother set of problems, if you will, a whole nother set of issues that we just don't know. And that keeps me up late at night, turns my stomach all the time. But I feel like, again, like we're there. I feel like once we get this newer space, it's prettier. We have a bar. The vibe is what we want it
Nice.
to be. We get to build it out how we want to build it out. Like it's just something. So like that same feeling I'm talking about, like I have it constantly now, because again, I can sit back and sit where we're at, and we can always be this cute hole in the wall local restaurant, or we can kind of pivot and showcase that we're a major contender in the city of the San Antonio and the state of Texas. So
It's kind of that like hunger that continually drives you, and
yeah.
everyone is trying to find that destination, that purpose. I found that a lot of people, when they do reach that sort of success, they tell me that they enjoyed the process of it more and wish they enjoyed the journey of it more. But there's so many ups and downs with that, and there's so many emotional waves with that. I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to experience the entire journey again. But then at the same time, when you sit at success, it's like you want more, you want more, you want to expand because you know that you can do it. So it's such an interesting feat, because it sounds like you guys are now expanding because you know that the possibilities are there, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. I mean, it is. I mean, it's getting back into like TED Talks and, a lot of just motivational speaking and just, self care, self help, and not just for myself, but for my team as well. Like I want to be a better leader for them, and just show that. Cause I mean, there's times, for sure chefs, we got a little temper, and
I've
like
heard.
we want things right. And the reason being though, it's kind of like I was having this conversation with my barber the other day. Is like that we're in the industry where we don't have the luxury of making a mistake, right? Like my barber can't just like shave my head or, cut all crazy and then be like, sorry, and same thing. Like I don't have the luxury, and chefs don't have the luxury of serving you an okay meal, right?
Yeah,
Like if we serve you something and it hits your table and you're just like, well, the plating's off or the flavor's off or it's cold or, and I'm not talking about like personal taste. I'm talking about like, I need to do everything on my end to make sure that I send you this dish and know that it's a 10 out of 10. Now, when it hits your table, it's not for your palate. It's not for your palate, but I need to do everything on my end to make sure it looks pretty and it tastes amazing. And we don't get a second chance. Like I can't send it to your table and be like, oh no, give me table three's back. I didn't like the way I plated it. Like once it hits, it hits.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a forever memory, a forever impression. And you know, that pressure is good and that pressure is bad, right? But, you know, I kind of live for that moment too, you know, the stress of the line, you know, tickets coming in, the tickets not printing, you know, hearing like two top, four top, three top walking in, you know, all of that adrenaline rush really does get it going. But yeah, when you look back and like even now, just to where I came from when I started this on my own in 2018 to now, and I'm like, man, there's so many times where you alluded to like I could have gone left and this wouldn't be here.
Right.
I could have gone right and this would have been here. And you know, kind of like the twist of fate that landed me on the Food Network is I was sitting at home and my director sent an email and said, hey, fill this out. It's for a Food Network thing. And I looked at it, sent it to my team, sent it to my mom, and they were like, fill it out. And I was like, I don't want to. You know, and then Sunday night came and they were like, fill it out. The deadline was like at 11:59. So here I am, you know, filling out this 30-page essay
Oh
thing.
gosh.
And then the next morning I get a call and they're like, hey, you know, let's jump on a FaceTime. You know, let's talk
Wow.
about, you know, you being on the Food Network. And then from there, it was literally just off of the fact that I don't want to say I quit being lazy, but I quit being lazy, you know, and just
Been
decided to
there.
fill out something because I never thought that was possible. Right. So, I mean, there's just all these incidents that have come up across the way where, yeah, I mean, you know, I couldn't have been here in this position. So I don't take it lightly. Like every day we push to make sure that we, you know, I'm doing my best because I feel like it can all be gone tomorrow if we stop working.
I totally agree with that. I have a few points. When you say like the initial memory that people have, you get that one shot. That's what kind of frustrates me about journalism too, because I feel like it's so hard to judge a restaurant on one sit down meal. And there's just so many expectations. And that's why I kind of like the higher journalists will go like three or four times and kind of get a feel for it. But not all of us have that luxury, especially if we're just visiting. So the expectation there must be
Mhm.
like kind of daunting, but if you enjoy the pressure and you kind of thrive under, you made me think of the bear, honestly, the bear scene where like they were like running around and they had like too many orders. But yeah, if you thrive
Yeah,
under pressure, then that's a good environment for you to be in. But me personally, I think that would very much stress me out because you're being perceived constantly.
all the time. And you know, and there's a lot of factors. Like we, you know, we try to I don't say educate our customer, but just like the customer is educating us on like what the new wave of eating is, like what they expect and what they're looking for in food. It's kind of the same for us. Like for instance, we had a couple come in not too long
Mhm.
ago and they were fighting,
Oh no.
right? And they were fighting and then like they ordered the food and they barely ate the food because they're sitting at the table like fighting. You know, they're
uh,
arguing, entrees come out, everything, and then they leave. They leave the right amount of tip, the 20%, but they barely touch their food, right? So we're sitting back like, well, are we going to get a review off of that, right? Like, did that affect us, right? Well, then sure enough, we get a review saying
no.
the ambiance was bland, the food was this, it was overrated,
What?
they really wanted to like it, and like, and the only reason I know what their ticket was is because you know in their Google review they
Hmm.
put you know what their order was, and so we go and look back. I'm like, well, that's the table that was mad, you know? And like, I can't do that. Where, you know, again, we have shirts that says like hangry, we can fix that.
Yeah.
If you come in a little hangry, you know, that's a different story. You're just waiting for the food and we feel we can change your perception. But there's so many external factors that we can't control on how your day is. If your boss made you mad, if your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister, your family made you mad, you know, your car's in the shop. There's so many things that we can't control if you're already in a bad mood,
Right.
but sometimes we can. Like sometimes like you're in a bad mood, you eat our food and then it's just like, you know, you really made our day. Like our day sucked. You know, we had to take our car across the street. It was going to be $3,500. We came here and just the kindness of your staff, the deliciousness of the food really turned our day around. So I mean it's a balance, like you said. I mean, it is that pressure that drives us every time to just make sure, like, well, did we do everything on our part? Like, did we make sure we gave the best customer service? Did we make sure we sent out the best quality food? And if that's the case, then, you know, we have to live with it at the end of the day.
That's such an interesting point because obviously, as a consumer, I'm always going to say if the restaurant has a bad day, then maybe that's why, whatever, whatever. But the couples, yeah, that's really interesting. I've never really thought of it in terms of like their mood and how it affects their experience. That's such a bummer. Did you reply to the comment and be like, sorry? How do you reply to that and deal
No,
with
I mean we have a general like we figure that people use these platforms to express how they feel in their moment, and it's their right to express. The one thing that we don't like, or me personally,
that?
is like you can come in and say, I thought the food was bland, I thought the food was salty, I thought the food was overrated, I thought the price was da da da, all of that. That's fine. What I don't like is when we'll have comments, and it's a lot of like local, like Facebook restaurant groups in the city that will
Shocked.
sometimes say it was okay, but I had to go wash out my mouth. And I'm like,
What?
see, that's where like you cross a line to us. And it hasn't been to us per
So
se, but
rude.
like we've had one. I just a lie. We've had one. We had one where we served this lady, again, on our menu description, pan-seared duck, hibiscus and pecan mole. Like that's my baby. That dish is like my baby
Mhm.
because I love duck. I didn't like moles growing up, so I went on this quest to fall in love with moles again.
Oh.
So like this whole dish and this whole conception is my baby. So we go out. My sister runs my front of the house, who's amazing. Shout out Michelle. And she comes back and she has the plate, and I'm like, okay, what happened?
Mm.
Like, what did I miss? What happened? And she goes, the lady didn't like it because da 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 da. And I was like, that she knew, she said she liked duck. She goes, well, she says she likes fried duck.
Oh.
I'm like, but the dish says pan-seared duck. And then the lady was like, it was repulsive. And that's where I was like, it's
Uh,
not. Just because something is not how you like interpreted it, on my menu it says pan-seared duck. On my menu it says everything that goes with it because you misread it and said, well, I thought it was going to be fried. My dish is not repulsive, right?
uh,
But again, I can't walk out there and be like, what are you talking about?
that's where
So,
my ego would be like going crazy.
but like, because again, on some of those times when I tell these people, like, did you actually read our menu?
Mhm.
But, you just kind of smile and nod. And then, of course, we rerun or something else. And then, it's like one of the best things she's ever eaten, and she's raving about us and can't wait to come back. So, it is a very fine line when you deal with customers. And, I get it. Like customers are tired of hearing, well, prices are rising. Well, staff is
Yeah.
short. They don't want to hear that. Right. So at the same notion, what we're trying to do is basically say like, cool, we're not making excuses, but also like come to our restaurant as a smarter consumer in the sense as that like my sister runs the front of the house. Her husband is my chef de cuisine.
Okay.
Chef Kendra is my girlfriend who was on the line with me. My mom comes in and helps us. My 86-year-old grandma comes
Oh.
in and does dish. One of my best friends, who's now a farmer, and I think he was with me at the
Oh yeah,
festival,
yeah.
is a farmer. We went to culinary school with together. He helps us spot shoot. We just hired another great young lady, Crystal, who was one of my students at culinary
Oh
school.
wow.
I taught her and we brought her in the restaurant. So like everybody is connected. It's not just so when we hear like customer service was bad, I'm like, my sister's the nicest person on this planet. It's
It's not
not.
her.
When we hear, well, we don't know if the dish was like authentic. I'm like, well, my girlfriend, Chef Kendra, is from,
Yeah, what?
was born and raised in Japan and she grew up Korean. So like her mom's Korean. You mean to tell me that you're more authentic so it's always like this fine dance and this fine balance of where we're at. And like right now we can control all of that. When we grow, again, when I have 20, 30, 40, 50 people working for us, we're still going to maintain the culture, right? Like we say that we set the culture, we are the culture, we don't set the culture, right? Like what we do day in and day out is who we are, and this is the ethos of the business, and we're always going to be our best no matter what. There's days where we have bad days as well, but like we don't, we kind of use Remember the Titans. I'm a sucker for Remember the Titans. Like, when they're like on this field, we're perfect. And that's how we feel. When we're in this kitchen, we're perfect. When we're in this restaurant, we're perfect. Outside of that, walls may be crumbling down. Life might not be going well. But when we're together cooking in this kitchen and serving our customers, we have to be perfect. And that's just what we demand of each other. And, I'm just, again, I'm blessed that they're so good and passionate about what they do that it makes my job way, way easier.
Challenging authenticity of people that you don't even know the background of is wild to me.
Well, like some of the verbiage, like I want to try to change people is like when they ask me, is it authentic? When I tell them I grew up half Chinese, half
Right.
Mexican. Well, is your dish
I
authentic?
don't think they know what that
Well,
means.
I'm authentic. Well, and that's what I think it is, right? Like I'm like, well, I'm authentic. Now, if you're asking me, is it traditional? No,
Right.
it's not traditional. If you're telling me, well, this dish is traditionally in Oaxaca, well, I'm not creating you that. If you're telling me, my family's from the Hong Kong province, if you're telling me like, well, this is not how I'd get it in Hong Kong, you're right, because I can't serve you that. What I can serve you is what's authentic to me, right? Traditional versus authentic are two different things. Like traditional means, is it by the book exactly how somebody did it? Meaning like they use their certain water, the certain flour, the certain this, the certain that. So I think all food is going to have some sort of your interpretation on it. Your mom probably cooked something for you and you like, I like that, but I like more salt, or I like more pepper, or I like more garlic, or I like more onion. So does that mean that now that recipe is not authentic because it's not your mom's recipe anymore? So, it's just that fine line of like verbiage, like, is it authentic? Yes. Is it traditional? No.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
a total misunderstanding. And this actually leads to my next question for you. Like, what do you think, coming from a Chinese and mixed Mexican heritage, is the biggest misconception of the food and the culture?
for me, I'm South Texas as well. So I'm Tex-Mex. And you'll have this whole nother can of worms over like, is Tex-Mex its own food category? And
I
like
know it's a debate.
it is, like this. Yeah, it is. Like it's not a bad thing. Like it's again, it's a different interpretation of food. And so growing up, it was always like, well, I'm not Chinese enough to be Chinese, and I'm not Mexican enough to be Mexican.
Mm.
And it was just kind of like teetering on this fine line with my family because again, I love Texas barbecue,
Oh,
right?
who doesn't?
So like smoke, like southern
So good.
smoke, like deep
Cornbread.
smoke, deep, smoke ring. Yeah, just all of that, low and slow brisket for, 12 hours, 14 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, like fall apart, slices, like everything with that. So in my cuisine, I mix all of that. So growing up was like trying to take something traditional and then putting my spin on it. And again, when my aunt came into my restaurant, she was like, well, this isn't how I'd serve it. And I was like, well, that's how I serve it. She was like, okay,
There.
you know, and same thing on the Mexican side. I'll have Mexican family come in and be like, well, I wouldn't have served it like that. And I'm like, well, that's how I serve it. And they're like, okay, I mean, so I think it's just an appreciation. Like if you're going to a local restaurant, if you're going to a restaurant that has a chef, whether it's family run or on a bigger stage, their heart is really coming into this dish. Like they really are putting a piece of themselves on this plate. So it might not be what you're used to, but if you're going for a dining experience, I think you should be fine.
Do you find that the word fusion is a word that you like to kind of use when it comes to mixing the two foods together? Or is that something you tend to stay away from?
So we use fusion as like a universal term because then people understand. But also, people, it's weird. They interpret fusion as like, again, this isn't a knock on anybody, but this is like, well, oh, you have like, why don't you have like kimchi enchiladas? I'm like, well,
Whoa.
that's not a that's not a thing. Like, or like, you should have like a pork bulgogi taco, or you should have, a sesame chicken taco, or a sesame chicken quesadilla. And I'm like, yes, I get where you're going,
Yeah.
but also like that's not fusion. Like
Right.
the fusion isn't simply saying like, oh, well, here's an egg roll, let's put carne guisada into it, or let's put brisket into it. Like, is it delicious? Yeah, but I don't know if I'd call that fusion. Like that's not like fusion per se. So we teeter on the line of fusion just by mixing similar ingredients. So what's an ingredient that we take in Asian culture, like a ginger or a lemongrass, and then how can I complement that onto like our roasted tomato chicken on the Mexican side? And by pairing those different herbs and spices and flavorings, then that allows me to say, well, this is a fusion because it's taking these ingredients from this culture, these ingredients from this culture, and we're just kind of blending them. And that's like what we do with our duck. Our duck is, Mexican oregano, this Chinese barbecue spice. It gets sous vide and then it gets finished with the hibiscus and pecan mole. And then in the vegetables, it's ginger, lemongrass, garlic that are sauteed and wok fried with a little bit of tamari. So in that dish, you're kind of getting Mexican flavors and Asian flavors with being a fusion without us outright in your face saying it's a
Right.
fusion. So fusion, yes, I do use to describe our food just to kind of give people an understanding of what we're doing, that we're not going to be traditional. You can come in and get sesame chicken at my restaurant, but it's my version of sesame chicken. It's not sesame chicken.
Right.
It still looks like sesame chicken, but it's not going to taste like, the Chinese restaurant across the street. And there's nothing wrong with the Chinese restaurant across the street. We're
It's
just
just
putting
different.
our own spin on it. So yeah, it's just a little, again, just a little bit. And it's not pretentious. Like, it's not to be like,
No,
well, I'm
no,
a
no.
chef, so I'm doing it. No, no, no. It's literally how I see the food. And that's what I think a lot of times is hard for people to understand is I'm not trying to plate fancy. I'm not trying to add 5, 6, 7 components to the dish. It just, that's what I see. And then when you take the bite, you can kind of taste everything all together. And then you kind of takes you on a little bit of a ride of like, oh, there's sweet, there's salty, there's umami, there's bitter, there's everything there's earthy that plays into that palate. And you're like, well, that was good. But in that moment, you're not processing all that. You're just like, oh, that was good. But that's what we're looking for, is like that wave, that ride to take you on, to show you like, oh, oh, oh. And then, kind of complete your meal.
I think the biggest mistranslation when it comes to fusion is that you automatically think, oh, you're just slapping two things together. And that's what it is. Versus
Yeah, for
like the
sure.
problem solving aspect and understanding where ingredients come from. I think it's just a total miscommunication. But I know pretentious foods, and I had a dessert with 27 ingredients the other day. So 27
Wow.
is a lot for a dessert. You touched upon this, so I want to get into Big Restaurant Bet a little bit. Of course, I have to get a little bit into the Food Network of it all.
Yeah, for sure.
So to explain to listeners, Big Restaurant Bet, if you haven't seen it, there's a season out. So basically, you're chosen out of 8 chefs to be on the show. And the premise is that Jeffrey Zakarian, he's an acclaimed chef. He's been on Food Network. If you don't know him, he invests $250,000 to the winner for resources to run their first restaurant, or is it more of just to help you kind of get going?
Pre-COVID, it was our
Okay.
first restaurant, and then post-COVID, it became just to help you wherever you were at in your
Got
path.
it. Okay. So you kind of talked about what the process looked like. Did you end up like kind of auditioning at all, or they just called you and were like, "Hey, you're going to be on it and be here at X time or whatever"?
Yeah, so it again, so this is, January 2020, and submit an application, and then, Sunday night 11:59, I think I hit send at like 11:56, and I was like, okay. The next morning I get an email saying, "Hey, we need you to jump on a call if you're serious about this. If not, no worries." So like I remember like I hadn't had a haircut, I hadn't shaved, and and I was like trying to run around and figure out all this stuff and get on a call, and again, just like a FaceTime, and we talk for 20 minutes, and then the lady's like, "Stop." I was like, okay. She goes, "You need better lighting, you need better this, you need this, like, let's do this. I really like you." So then now we talk for another hour. Like, okay, cool. 2 weeks later, they send me another email like, "Hey, we really like you. Can you send us like a demo of you
Okay.
cooking something? If you have any videos of you like on TV." So I sent them, any clips of me, being on local TV. Did a quick demo just in my kitchen, just over, I think, pickling. I
Oh
did
yeah.
pickle red onion, and then they loved it because they were like, "Oh wow, the knife skills are really cool." And that's kind of why I picked it, because I was like, "Oh, that should be a good one." I can kind of show off and go to town on my onion, and all of that. And then March 1st hit, and they're like, "Hey, you're one of our top candidates. We like everything." They're sending us stuff like, block out these dates. Well, then mid-March
On there.
2020,
Mhm.
we all know what happens. And then from there, it was just like, I don't think I heard from them till maybe the end of April. And they're like, "Hey, just keep us in the loop about what's going on." And I'm like, well, kind of like the rest of the world, I'm just sitting at home. I mean, I was teaching, culinary school at the time. So I was an online professor. So doing a lot of just Zoom classes.
Online culinary school must have been tough.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
different, because it was a lot of lecture, and then of course, you have 8 to 10 shy people sitting behind a computer screen and trying to get them to engage with you, and it was tough. And we try to make it fun, and then try to bring them into my kitchen. I do some quick demos while they were on, and I tell them like, "This is what I'm cooking for the day. If you want to go buy the ingredients and cook
Okay.
with me." or same thing. And that was like how a lot of it was like, go to the school, pick up your goods, cook, and then send me a video of
Got it.
what you're
Okay.
doing type deal. And then just every month they were like, we're just checking in. We're just checking in. I'm like, well, I'm doing the same thing, you know? And then finally it picked up legs. I think, my timeline's weird now, like early 2021. And we were already looking at getting a restaurant. And I told
That's
them, I
what
was
I
like,
was
look,
curious
Food Network
about.
sounds amazing. Yeah. Food Network looks amazing, but like, hey, like I have to move on with my life. Is this still okay? And they're like, well, the scope of the show kind of
Oh,
changed.
okay.
So you should be fine. So we go through everything, and then I get selected, and then they're like, well, hey, you need to bring a different concept than what's currently open right
Hmm.
now. Okay. And they're like, well, all the menus you submitted, you have to submit something different. So the only thing that at the time I wish I had really realized and thought about is I should have pulled out like my next concept, which is a little bit more like finer dining in the sense of like, but I wanted to just, I was so engulfed into my current concept that I couldn't let it go. So my menu was a lot of what I was doing currently. And they just were kind of like, well, that's okay, but we'll see type deal. And then we went to shoot the show, in November of 2021. And it was an amazing experience, met 7 other amazing chefs, Brett, who I brought down, in October for Culinaria, one of my good friends. I love what he's doing. I love who he is. Mariana out of Vegas. I saw she was just at
Oh,
Super Bowl
amazing.
doing her thing. Alicia, out of Arkansas, she's doing her thing. Demetrius, is back and forth between Arizona and Houston doing his thing. T out of Virginia is doing her thing. So I mean, a lot of us, Jessa's in New Jersey doing her thing, and Kobe in New York. So like everyone is still actively cooking and still doing it. So it wasn't just like a facade. Like it wasn't just like these people got put together and then they're
Right.
not actually doing anything. Like if you go and look all of us up, we're still in this culinary field trying to make it. So I mean, the friendship we took out of that, which was pretty cool. And of course, all the Food Network like, will talk trash about this person. I'm like, well, I just met them yesterday, and like I kind
Yeah.
of like them, So, but just to make good TV, we
Stir up
had
some
to
drama.
live it up a
Hmm.
little. But yeah, the whole situation, Jeffrey Zakarian, Iron Chef. I remember watching, Iron Chef and Chopped when he was a judge with my mom and just all of that stuff. So, to be able to say hello to him and, have these conversations with them and get to see what it's like behind the scenes of these big TV shows was really cool. And then again, my producer, Antonio Johnson, shout out Tone. I still talk to him, on the regular. He's a great guy. So just the relationship part of out of all of this is really what's been the best part. So
I'm so glad you brought up that timeline because I was kind of wondering it because you already had a restaurant at the time that it was kind of going into it. So I was wondering how that worked. I am
yeah.
curious though because you're very prideful in your work. You really want to represent your heritage. What were the emotions going through your head when you were sent home? Because you were sent home about halfway through, so you made it pretty far.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a roller coaster of emotions the whole way through. Getting there,
Hmm.
was was cool. And then, kind of like, well, once you're there, I had a great coach, Coach Osterman, growing up, high school basketball coach. And he used to talk about 3 teams. He was like, you're happy to be there. So if you win, it's a celebration, it's a big party. The next team is like, you hope to win. So if you win, you celebrate a little bit. And the third team is like, you expect to win. You go out there, you expect to win. Once you win, you just nod your head and move along. If you lose, you take it to heart. You figure out what you can do to make sure that doesn't happen again because you don't want this feeling. So going through that, I was pretty much very locked in. And I was cooking a lot leading up to that. And first challenge we go through, and just spoiler alert, first challenge we
Hmm.
go through, and it's a dish to yourself. Like what dish is you? So we do these blue corn tostadas,
That's right up your
pressed
alley.
out, masa made fresh daily.
Hmm.
Yeah, pressed out, do this blue corn, black bean and nopalito puree, pork belly. Like this was me. This was my introduction to the Food
Hmm.
Network. Put that dish out. What they don't tell you is like, or what I want viewers to know is that if they tell you an hour, you have an hour to cook. And it's not
So
just like
stressful.
the 3 plates you see for the judges. Yeah, you know, I think that first one, we cooked like 14, 15 dishes, like, or, small bites for everybody in
Oh,
an
wow.
hour. So I'm like, no, 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 tell the world we did this in an hour because, all of us are sweating and hustling and, going through. So that first challenge we go through, everybody eats it, having a good time. And then when they announced that I won the challenge, they had to bleep me out because I was like, oh, like I didn't know, like I didn't expect that. Like it was very much like a good feeling. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, now it's like, how do you sustain that? How do you make sure that you always bring forth your best option? And then, just trying to navigate the challenges. And then, when I did get eliminated, I mean, I'm big enough to admit now, like I should have pivoted and done a different way. But again, like part of what got me to where I am is because I'm stubborn. Part
Same.
of where I'm at also is because I'm stubborn. So, it's like I should have pivoted, I should have done something, but I was so fixated on proving a point that like I can make this delicious that I kind of blinded myself to I should have done a different dish. So going home was pretty hard. I hated to go home more so because I felt like I let down my friends and my family because I wanted this win more so for them. I wanted them to see that like everything that they pour into me, everything that they've been pouring into me is not a lost cause. So I took it hard for that. But when I came back, everybody embraced me with open arms and, was proud of me. And, when the show aired, everybody was happy. And, it hurt to lose for the sense that like
Wanted
I
the
I wanted to
celebration.
be there.
Mhm.
Like I wanted to be there because I wanted to show that like everything that we've been doing and like that validation, so to speak, of like you actually made it and you actually have done it. But again, everything happens for a reason. And through that experience has made me a better chef. Like going through that has made me better because now I know that like I'm not where I want to be yet. So every day is a true test of like push to where you want to be. Cause if not, like, you know, it's not gonna happen. So yeah, so I mean it did hurt. I shed a tear or two.
I would have too. I would have shed a tear right in that kitchen. Well, with all the stress, I can't deal. I mean, I'm really good under pressure in terms of like deadlines, but with cameras on you too, and then they also want you to kind of be a performer in a way. Like you have to kind of be interesting on the
Yeah,
camera. It's like I think it's the fact that there's too
for
many things
sure.
going on at once.
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different experience. You got a guy like on his knee, like, like a foot away from you, and you're kind of cooking, just looking at him. And then, the minute you start doing something, they're like, they get on the mic, chef's doing something cool, come over here. And then another two cameras run over and you're just kind of like, and then you have a producer shouting at you like talk. And I'm like, I'm cutting a bell pepper right now. We're gonna saute it. And then you hear we have 30 minutes left. I'm like, okay, I can't talk to you no more. I gotta cook. So, it was a cool experience. I mean, it was definitely a very cool experience to be in that environment and just, you cook for an hour, hour and a half, whatever the time was. And then at the end, you're just kind of like, oh, okay. Well, let's see if we did enough to make it to tomorrow. And so, it was,
I
again,
have
it
I
was
have a
cool.
real question for you. How long in between do you serve the food once you finish doing it? Because doesn't it get cold?
Yeah. So, like, that was the other part of it. Like, some we served
Okay.
immediately, but some we served, like, I felt like 4 or 5 hours
Oh
later.
my gosh.
Cause, like,
That's
we would
crazy.
cook. Yeah, we would cook and then you'd kind of go through everything. And then, you'd get pulled off into different rooms for interviews and, talk to different people. And then you don't know, like, did they eat my food when it was hot? Because sometimes you would like immediately, like 30 minutes later, we'd hear like, oh man, they really enjoyed your food. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, they did eat it. And then other times we'd look and be like, is that our food that's been there for 5 hours? So, I don't really know the true scope of it. Like some of the challenges, like where we did like presentation wise and everything, we cooked, we set up for presentation, and then we served them. So like some of that was like true food on the spot, but a lot of it was just 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't know. It just kind of depends.
You know what though? Honestly, they're pros, especially Jeffrey. He probably eats it with that in mind. He probably is like, this would be a
Yeah.
little better
And that's what
cost.
they told us. They basically told us like, hey, like, don't worry about that. Like we understand. It's not like I guess like a restaurant customer, coming in And it's not like I cooked this food at 10 o'clock and here I am serving them the same plate that I plated at 12 o'clock. And they're like, well, it's cold. It sucks. Well, yeah, of course it does. It's 2 hours later. So, I think a little bit of leeway came in with that. So,
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say a little bit earlier in terms of you being like disappointed and kind of letting down your friends, which obviously you very much did not do. I know everyone wants the big wins, and like who doesn't? I mean, everyone wants to celebrate, everyone wants the trophy, whatever it is. But I would argue like since then, it's been like the small victories that you kind of have to pay more attention to, especially if someone comes in and like you said, you change their mood and make them happier. It's like those things where you can take with you a little bit longer and you know that you're actually making an impact versus like a one-time win.
no, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
It's hard to say that,
it's
but
always good to
like
get that. Yeah, no, yeah, it's always good to get that big one. But yeah, I mean, we've again through that, through Food Network and Big Restaurant Bet, you kind of helped launch me in San Antonio a little bit. Just this past summer, I was named one of the UNESCO Chef
I
Ambassadors for
saw.
the city of San
Uh-huh.
Antonio. Yeah, so which is pretty cool. So I know I'm not sure when this one's going to air, but actually in mid March they're sending me to China for a food
No
festival.
way.
So yeah, so I'll be in China for about 7 days on this big food festival. There's 10,000 Chinese chefs that they're going to have cooking, and they're going to try to send a Guinness Book of World Records.
Whoa.
So I have a plaque for that. So because of some of those things, which gave me the confidence to push for bigger and better, has been cool. So just being a part of that, being a part of the UNESCO, chef family, the network of it all. Visit San Antonio has done an amazing job, bringing people to us, just highlighting who we are, highlighting what we do. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
they're awesome.
I can't complain. I can't complain. I mean, there's a lot of great things have been happening. And, once we get this new space, kind of, our whole thing is manifestation. We're pushing for James Beard because
As you
again,
should.
we want that with us, not as a personal thing, but just to show that like, we can serve a quality product that's recognized on a really global scale. And, people can identify with that and then give us the opportunity to serve them. Cause I mean, that's a big thing, is like, all we need is somebody to come through the door. I feel like once you come through the door, we can get you hooked, but it's hard to get you to come through my door right now, or just any restaurant because there's so many to choose
Yeah.
from. I'm pretty sure right now you get asked all the time, like, "Hey, where are we going to eat?" All the cool places, and you're pretty sure you're like,
That's
we have
exactly what
family coming in
happens.
town next week. You're like, where are we, like, where are we going to eat? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, do they want to go to the hole in the wall that we like? So, I mean, just having that recognition on a global platform is what we're looking for to just bring more butts in the seats. I just want to make sure that, when we say we want to be rich, I just want to be comfortable to where all my team has, a great livable wage. All the rest of my team is taken care of. I want to be able to take a vacation when we want to take a vacation. I want to be able to give rest days when we want to give rest days. Like that's the richness that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for 5 million in the bank. I'm looking for if I need to take a mental health day or my team needs to take a mental health day, like we can afford to do that without feeling guilty. And right now it's like we're in the middle of the grind at like you can't because you have to be consistent. You have to make sure that you're there all the time, whether you want to be or not. So we're just trying to navigate that fine balance. And, that's my goal. That's where I want to be in a couple of years is my team is, fully functioning. They can run it and I can work on other concepts. And then I'm able to give them breaks when
You are a
needed.
good boss. A
I
lot of
appreciate
higher
that. Trying.
bosses don't give a crap about that.
Well, I mean, just, my mom is a teacher, and then, my dad worked
Hmm.
in retail and then my stepdad, worked civil service and like, they just really instilled in me that ethos and values. Like, like I'm gonna be hard on my team. My team will tell you, I mean, I'm tough on them, but the reason I'm so tough on them is because they're that good. And it's not tough in the sense where I'm nitpicking. It's just perfection. Like if we can run at 1.5 times speed, I'm gonna run at 2 times just to see if we can get it done. Right. Just like other chefs push me and other people push me. I want them to see that they're better than they think they are because I believe in them just like somebody believed that I was better than I was. And that's all it is. It's just making sure that I take care of my people because I feel like if I take care of my people will take care of our guests, and then in return, the guests will take care of all of us.
Sometimes people just need someone behind them to unlock their potential. And when it comes to food,
For sure.
the beauty of it is that you can push yourself to like these insane limits that you didn't even know that you can get to.
Yeah.
It's just like, especially in creative spaces like that, and with business too, there's such a, like a combination of both. It's just like you have so much potential and possibility that like sometimes you just need someone to be in your ear saying like that you can do it, and someone to motivate you in that way. So that's wonderful that you're a mentor like that to them. I'm
Yeah,
sure
for
they
sure.
appreciate that and take it to heart for sure.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean they do. I mean again, they're great. I just want to give them the world. My biggest thing is I just always want to return the courtesy. Just return the courtesy. No matter how big, no small, just to show them that I care. I mean, that's just in general with anybody. I mean, again, when you asked me to be on this, I was like, heck
I know, I
yeah,
appreciate
like
that.
just trying to figure out the schedule of it all. I was like, heck yeah, I mean, again, meeting you at the festival and just having people who within our city or outside our city who come in and love good food and then appreciate what you're doing it's just again it's just cool. So it's always fun to be on something like this because you could just kind of share your story, get to have a conversation with somebody who loves food, and it's just a different vibe when you get to meet somebody and converse about food in their life, because it's like, yeah, you understand like what it takes to be in food and what chefs go through and what restaurants go through. So it's always
I
cool.
love getting to the core of people because I feel like I just meet, and this is just in life too, you meet so many people in passing and you have no idea of their story at all. There's no indication of
Yeah.
anything. And people have so many insanely cool stories that like feel like people would enjoy listening to, but sometimes it gets overshined by like, especially in media, like bigger celebrities or whoever. And it's sometimes you need to spotlight the not necessarily smaller people, but people who are just doing good work. Quick question for you though: is the China thing, because this is going to air next week? So is that something that's public knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, it's public knowledge.
Okay,
Yeah. So yeah, I'll be in Shundi, China, mid-March doing a food festival.
fun.
So, hopefully, trying to go through all the security briefings with all of that and
Oh
like
my
what
gosh,
I can take, what I can't take, recording, not recording. So that's the part that's like, it's like, oh wow, this is
intense.
this is a little different, than just traveling across the state.
Yeah, can
So
you bring like, because you're gonna need some of your chef stuff. So I'm sure you have knives that you have feel like you have to bring. Do you have to check all that?
yeah, so like with the visa and all that, like I have to itemize exactly what I'm
Wow,
bringing, so that they know. So I'm not going to take my babies. I'm not going to take my pride and joy knives. I'm going to take the knives that are my workhorses. That if something happens, like yeah, of course I'll be sad to lose them, but I'm not losing my $1,000 knives or anything
no,
like
yeah,
that.
no,
So
you couldn't. It's got to be your pride and
yeah,
joy.
so
Normally, I kind of ask what's next for you, like any upcoming projects, but I feel like you kind of said everything. I mean, you're trying to find another space for your restaurant. You're doing this crazy trip. You're a chef ambassador. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything going on, or did we cover all of it?
no, I mean those are the main things. I mean, and the other thing I'm getting into is just trying to be more I guess giving insight to like daily lives and like chef stuff. Like I'm working on like quick and easy tips. Like I do a Just a Tip
Oh,
Tuesday,
fun.
kind of on my business channel right now, where we just give, people come into the restaurant or they're DM us and they're like, how do you make a vinaigrette? So we just do a quick video on how to make a vinaigrette, or, I have a party coming up and I need to do 30 hors d'oeuvres. How do I do that? Or what do I do? And just little things like that I feel like I just want to get back to people. Cause again, I remember starting out and having no clue. My mom was like, hey, I have, 15 ladies coming over. Can you make something? And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like,
Mhm.
how do you make, small bites for 15 people? So I remember looking through all that and finding different YouTubes or finding different social media platforms that had chefs or, just home cooks, whatever alike. And I'm like, they're doing a really good job at it. And, they just have a passion for food on the home cook side. Well, what if I marry like my professionalism and my passion and just give like my voice into this space? So working on that, working with the team to get those kind of up and running, and just again have fun. Maybe I'll do a podcast and I'll have you on as my guest. We
Yay!
can hear your story, because again, I love stories. I think like just being able to tell somebody's story and highlight them and give them their flowers and showcase what they're doing is cool. So I love what
Thank
you're
you.
doing. So, I've been trying to listen to podcasts while I'm prepping
Oh
and,
my gosh.
just hang out and just show support and love. So,
I hope you like it.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so far all the ones I've listened to are great. So,
Yay.
we try to do that, change it up from just, the always the hip hop, the rap in the kitchen.
Mm.
And, sometimes Chef Hunter throws on Taylor Swift because he says that she's full of bangers on the album. So I'll let Chef Hunter throw Taylor Swift on every
She
now and
does
then.
have
But other than
bangers. You
that,
can't deny she doesn't have bangers.
he'll love to hear that. He'll love to
He
hear
does.
that.
I
So
grew up on her. I can't say that I don't love her to an extent. She's my childhood.
yeah, it's funny because like we were talking about it, and I don't understand why she gets so much hate about the whole being shown on TV. I
It's not
think
her
she's just
fault.
supporting her boyfriend. I have no issues with that. And but we were just listening to music and we are going through, and he was like, Taylor Swift has bangers, and I was like, okay, hold on. I don't know if we can use it in this context of us talking about like the top five, MCs of hip hop. But like, I agree. She has some good music, but so that's kind of just our running joke
That's
that,
funny.
him and Taylor Swift have bangers together. So,
That's so funny. I actually watched when I was watching the Super Bowl stuff. I was watching the Eminem and Snoop Dogg and like Dr. Dre performance. That performance is insane. I forgot how good it was.
yeah,
Like more people need to watch that again
yeah,
because that has
yeah, for
bangers.
sure. For
Speaking of
sure.
that, was such a good one.
100%. I agree.
I have a short game for you if you're up for it. Kind of get a little
Okay.
lighthearted. So it's like a little lightning round, popular food trends, and then you're going to say if it's like a smash or pass kind of deal. Okay.
Gotcha.
So first one, Mexican hot chocolate.
Oh, smash.
Same. It's so good. Second one, flavored margarita. So like mango or strawberry, like kind of flavored.
I'm a sucker for fruits like that. And like, my girlfriend gets mad at me all the time. Like, I like the girly drinks. I mean, don't get me wrong. My old fashioned is my drink of choice, but like if I can get like a strawberry or mango margarita, or if you can mix the two, yeah, that's a smash for me. I like cold, icy drinks like that. I don't know. It's just one of those life cycles I'm in right now. So yeah.
No, I have a problem with people who knock men for drinking quote girly drinks because they are delicious for a reason. They make you feel like you're like on the beach or on a vacation and they're very good. So, mango margarita all day.
All day. I agree.
Yeah, I actually this was a sidetrack. I was going to ask you for your videos and stuff. Is that going to be on Instagram or
Yeah.
like YouTube?
So
Oh, okay.
Instagram and then hopefully pairing that with like a YouTube and even like a TikTok. So that's what I just switched over social media people and we're bringing it more in house just to try to control it in the sense of like shoot the videos when it's more convenient for us versus somebody else's time and then
Mhm.
control the editing function. So we're in a learning stage of all that right now. So hopefully we have some on there right now that we've done in the past. Hopefully in about 2 to 3 weeks we'll launch that with the whole revamp look.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because my video last night. So National Margarita Day is next week,
Mm,
and I thought that was common knowledge. So I like posted
no,
this
I didn't
TikTok.
know.
I was like, National Margarita Day. It literally blew up. It's gotten like
Oh wow.
400,000 views, and people are like, National Margarita Day. I'm like, did no one know about this? This is crazy. So then that's why I put margaritas in here because I was like, people need to know about this. So this will go up next week. February 22nd is National Margarita Day.
Okay, well now I know. So now I got to get something prepped for a National Margarita Day. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You do. I'll point them to your restaurant, honestly. And then you're just gonna get flooded with people. Okay, the third one is burrito tacos. Those blew up on TikTok for a while.
Yeah, they blew up. And like thing about it, and the controversy down here was like, is it true birria? Is it true this? Is it true that? Is a
Mm.
consomme El Remedio, which is a food truck now turned into this amazing brick and mortar here in the city. They do a phenomenal job. And there's a lot of other spots that do phenomenal jobs with it. And I mean, again, I think being down here, South Texas, I'm a little biased. I mean, that's a smash. I mean, they're
Mm.
amazing. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. Like,
They're so
it's
good.
cheese, it's beef, it's saucy, it's it's delicious. Like you can sit there over a conversation and kill 12 without even realizing it. So they're definitely a smash.
I ordered one when I was there. I didn't feel like
Did
going
you?
out to
Yeah.
dinner, and I was like, I need one so bad because I just feel like it'll be so good here, and it lives up to my expectations. It was
Yeah,
delicious.
for sure, for sure.
Fourth one, hot Cheetos.
See, I'm not, that's where I would pass. I'm not, I've never been a hot Cheeto person. I know probably South Texas is gonna, slaughter me for that
Come for you.
comment, but I just like, I don't do hot Cheetos. I don't do really hot fries. Like, there's just something about it that just doesn't sit right with my stomach. But you give me Cheetos, whether it's puffs, the natural, the regular, like I'll smash those all day. But yeah, hot Cheetos or
Uh,
hot Funyuns or anything like that's a pass for me.
the puffs are so underrated. I
Yeah.
forgot about those. I used to
That's
eat
like
those
that's my
way too
travel
often.
snack. Yeah, we go to Bucky's and like we drive to Houston, Dallas, wherever. Like that's my ultimate travel snack.
Oh, I need to switch up my travel snacks. I honestly either forget to bring food or I have a granola bar, and that's boring. No one likes that. All right, my fifth one. Do you remember nacho tables when people would like put nachos on like a giant table pretty much and then everyone would just share it?
Yeah, that's always an interesting one for me. We actually like a couple years ago we actually got asked to do like a nacho table and I didn't
Oh,
realize that
really?
they wanted me to like have like cheese kind of like running through the middle of the table like a volcano-esque and
Oh,
I was like, yeah, I can't do that. So we did a really nice nacho bar where people were able to kind of build their own. That I'm a fan of. And like I'm a fan of like butter boards too. That whole trend of like,
love
where you put different
those.
butters on a board and
Mhm.
different breads. So like, I think that trendy food has a place. It's just hard like to do that all the time. But yeah. So like if it's like a nacho bar where you can build your own, I'm all for it. If it's like
Yeah.
again where this lady wanted me to recreate like, Land Before Time where nacho cheese is running through and little dinosaur chips, that one is a pass for me. But
Wait, I just had, if any Food Network people want to pick this up, I just had an idea. If they do like a Buddy Velastro cake version of nachos, I think people would watch
I
that.
think so too. I think so too, for sure.
Saying, like, call up your producer friend. They're going to be like, why are you
Yeah.
guys telling me
Pitch the
this?
idea.
You're really like, no. Okay, my final question for you to wrap up everything. If there's one cooking appliance or utensil that you think everyone should splurge on, what would it be and why?
So the one cooking utensil that I think everybody needs if they're taking cooking seriously is a
Mm-hmm.
scale. I think that a scale is super
Mm-hmm.
underrated, especially if you're doing like any home baking. I would do it in grams, but even just cooking in general, get a scale. And if it's not for that, if you're doing home cook, a high quality nonstick pan. Our place sells some good ones. Maiden sells some good ones. I mean, you can get all clad. You can go with like the traditional brands if you're going more of that style. But I think having like a good pan really does separate like good and mediocre cooking. I remember when I first started to cook, I went to Walmart and bought, and a knife. I guess I'm answering your question like in like 10 parts. I apologize. You said one, and here I am giving you a whole list. But,
You're good. You're
um,
good.
I remember like going to like Walmart and buying like a Paula Deen knife, 15 years ago, because that was like, oh, I have like a good knife. And then actually getting a good knife and realizing, oh, that knife sucked, but it was better than what my mom had. So, I think if you're going to do any cooking, I'm not saying that you need to splurge all this money on it, but just kind of invest in one or two good tools at a time. And I've really, I love a good nonstick pan, which just makes cleanup so much easier, and you can cook anything and everything into it. And then having a good quality knife, because the knife makes all the difference in
Mm-hmm.
cutting like a carrot or a potato, where you're not
It
having to
does.
like really push down and you're not having to do all this extra work, which your wrist will twist out. I've seen so many just bad knife injuries because of a bad knife or a dull knife in the kitchen. Like we
Yeah.
do a knife test like every other week with all of our cooks, and like, let me see how sharp your knives are, and if they're not, we're trying to think of something fun. We might make them do like 5 push-ups or something if they're not sharp. But now everybody's, sharpening their knives every week. And again, it's just caring for your craft. So if you love to cook, buy a couple of good appliances, and then once you start getting into a little bit upper scale, I say like an immersion blender. I can't live without my immersion blender,
I just bought my
so
dad one of those and he's obsessed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are.
I mean, I just bought a KitchenAid cordless one, and I'm like, oh, like
I
I
think
don't
that's
have
the
to
one I
plug it
bought
in.
him.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have to plug it in. Like I just charge. Well, now
Yeah.
if I forget to charge it, that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
once it's charged, it's I can just kind of move freely with it around the kitchen. It makes life so much simpler for soups and sauces and everything.
If it's not charged, you're gonna have to do 5 push-ups or a lap or something.
Yeah, I know, yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, I just got a really good nonstick pan. I went to an event at our place recently, and I was hoping they would give me a lot of stuff for free, and that did not happen. So I hope they listen to this and send me things, please.
For sure.
I really want
Send stuff.
art, please. Yes. Not to be
Yeah,
one
no,
of
I
those
just
people, but
yeah, I mean, we have like it started off with my mom buying me one for Christmas last year before,
oh,
and
nice.
and then I never used it. And like my mom came over one day and was like, I bought you this. And I was like, okay. So then like that day I like took it out of the box and washed it and then used it. And I was like, oh, we really like this. And then so from there, it went from buying one to another big one to now we have 2 small ones, to now the pot, to now the steamers. So just
What
the
color
collection has
set?
grown.
What color?
So I have a blue one in the
Okay.
big one. I have a blue one in the smaller, and then we have the Lunar New Year from last year, the red,
Oh,
and the big
nice. I
pan
like
and the
that one.
big pot. And then for Christmas, I just bought my girlfriend some of the Selena Gomez set, so I've got her
I
one
love
in one
that
of the
color.
colors.
Hmm.
So yeah, so again, our place, we're looking to show us some love. Like we'd all you some love. We love your product. I can show you everything. We bought it, so technically, we're just saying if you want to send us 1 or 2 things, we're not mad at it. So.
1 or 2 things. Yeah, you already know the product. You can put on your TikTok. We're getting brand deals here.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the deal. Well, thank you so much. I know I kept you over an hour, and you have to get to your restaurant, I'm sure. So.
Oh no, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, we blocked out time for this on purpose. It was great to
Okay.
be able to sit down and chat, not have to like look everywhere for every 5
Stress.
seconds. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Honestly, your background's incredible. I think you should do a TED Talk. I stand by that. I think you're a really great speaker. So
Oh, thank you.
TED
Appreciate
Talk too if you're listening. Just
it.
all right. So
For sure.
you can follow up with Chef Leo's latest projects on Instagram at Chef Leo Davila. Is there any other Instagram or social media? Because I know that's coming out as well.
Yeah, so my personal and then our business at Sticks and Stones. So it's STIXS and STONE. See what our food looks like. Come if you're ever in San Antonio, please come and check us out. We'd love to have you.
Yes, I have to come back. That's my goal.
For sure.
Hey, fellow foodies. Thanks so much for listening. And don't forget to leave me a review. While you're at it, make sure to follow me at Livvin for Food Pod on Instagram or TikTok, or email me at livinforfoodpod@gmail.com. Let me know what you're cooking up this week, which guests you would like to see on the podcast, or tell me your opinions on the latest viral food trend. And in case you're just joining me, there is an entirety of Season 1 ready and waiting for you. Until next time.